The space station was bigger than any city Park Do-yoon had ever seen. It floated in the darkness between stars like a metal flower, its lights blinking in patterns that meant nothing to him. He pressed his face against the shuttle window like a child, and he did not care who saw him do it. KELDR is station, the center of galactic trade, a place where 1,000 species came to buy and sell and argue and fight. And now, for the first time in human history, Earth had sent a trade delegation to join them. Do-hyun was the youngest member of the delegation. He was 24 years old. He had studied alien languages for 6 years. He had trained for this mission for 2 more. And still, when the shuttle docked and the doors opened, he felt his heart beat fast with fear. The first thing he noticed was the smell. 100 different scents mixed together in the air. Some were sweet. Some were sharp. Some made him want to cover his nose. But he kept his face calm and walked forward with the rest of his team. The second thing he noticed was the size of everyone around him. Humans were small. Do-hyun knew this fact from his studies, but knowing something and seeing it were different things. The Velthari towered over him, their forearms folded across their broad chests, their scales shining under the station lights. They were 3 meters tall, maybe more. Their eyes looked down at the human delegation, like a man might look at insects crawling across his floor. The Brin were different, but no less frightening. They looked like insects themselves, with hard shells and many legs and faces that showed no emotion. Their heads turned to watch the humans pass, and their mandibles clicked in a sound that might have been speech or might have been laughter. Do-hyun kept walking. He kept his eyes forward. He did not show his fear. The orientation hall was vast and cold. Hundreds of beings filled the space, all of them here to learn the station's rules and customs. A holographic display floated in the center of the room, showing maps and schedules in a dozen languages. Do-hyun found a spot near the back and waited. He did not have to wait long for trouble. A Velthari male pushed through the crowd. He was young for his kind, his scales still bright green, his movements full of the confidence that came from never being challenged. His name, Do-hyun would later learn, was Torvik. He was the son of a High Lord, and he had never met a creature he could not bully. Torvik stopped in front of the human delegation. He looked down at them with all 4 eyes, and his mouth twisted into something that was not quite a smile. "So these are the dirt crawlers," he said. His voice was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. I had heard Earth finally learned to fly. I did not believe it. They look like they belong in mud. Some of the other aliens laughed. Others simply watched, curious to see what would happen. The leader of the human delegation, an older woman named Director Song, stepped forward. Her voice was calm and professional. "We are representatives of Earth. We come in peace and friendship to..." Torvik did not let her finish. His upper right arm shot out and shoved her aside like she weighed nothing. Director Song stumbled and fell. 2 of her aides rushed to help her up. "Dirt crawlers should learn their place," Torvik said. "You do not speak until spoken to. You do not look us in the eye. You do not pretend to be our equals." He leaned down toward Director Song, his face close to hers. "Do you understand, little creature?" No one moved to help. The other aliens either looked away or watched with amusement. The Brin clicked their mandibles. A group of Velthari laughed openly. Do-hyun stood very still. He watched everything. He remembered everything. The way Torvik moved. The way the crowd reacted. The way the station security officers at the edge of the room did nothing at all. He understood now. Earth had no friends here. Earth had no protectors. In the eyes of the galaxy, humans were nothing. Less than nothing. They were a young species from a small world, barely able to travel between stars. They had no power, no history, no reputation. Torvik finally grew bored. He walked away, his followers trailing behind him, their laughter echoing through the hall. The orientation continued as if nothing had happened. That night, Do-hyun lay in his small room in the delegation quarters. He stared at the ceiling and thought about what he had seen. He thought about Director Song's face when she fell. He thought about the laughter. He thought about the way no one had helped, and then he made a decision. He got up quietly. He put on simple clothes, dark colors that would not stand out. He took nothing with him except a small knife that had belonged to his grandfather and a length of cord he had brought from Earth for no reason he could explain. He slipped out of the delegation quarters and into the stations. Corridors dot the upper levels of Keldra Station were bright and clean and safe. But every station had a dark side. Every city had places where the law did not reach. Do-hyun had studied the station maps for months. He knew where to go. The underbelly. That was what they called the lower levels. A place of black markets and criminals and hunters. A place where the weak were eaten and the strong made their own rules. Do-hyun walked down into the darkness. An old Brin merchant sat in a doorway, watching the crowds pass. Most beings hurried through these corridors, afraid of what lurked in the shadows. But this human walked differently. His steps were quiet and careful. His eyes moved constantly, watching everything. His body was relaxed, but ready. The old Brin had seen many creatures in his long life. Predators and prey. Hunters and victims. He knew how to read the way a being moved. This small human moved like something that had been hunted before and survived. The merchant watched until the human disappeared into the deeper darkness. Then he shook his head and returned to his business. Whatever that creature was looking for, he hoped it would not find it. Some hunts, after all, changed the hunter more than the prey. The Red Spiral Guild had no sign above its door. It did not need one. Everyone in the underbelly knew where to find the hunters, and those who did not know had no business looking. Do-hyun found it anyway. The entrance was hidden behind a repair shop that fixed broken machines. He walked through the shop without stopping, past the workers who pretended not to see him, through a door that looked like it led to a storage room. Behind that door was a staircase. Behind the staircase was another world. The guild hall was large and full of smoke and noise. Hunters from a dozen species sat at tables, drinking and arguing and showing off their scars. Weapons hung on the walls. Trophies from famous kills decorated every corner. The air smelled like blood and metal and something burning. Every eye turned to Do-hyun when he entered, a human. Here, in the Red Spiral Guild, someone laughed. Then someone else. Soon the whole room was laughing, the sound bouncing off the walls like thunder. Do-hyun did not react. He walked to the center of the room and stopped. "I want to join," he said. His voice was not loud, but somehow everyone heard him. The laughter stopped. A door opened at the back of the hall. A Valkyrie female walked out. She was older than Torvik. Her scales faded to a dull gray, her body covered in scars that told stories of 100 fights. Her name was Soreth, and she was the master of the Red Spiral Guild. She walked up to Do-hyun and looked down at him. Her 4 eyes studied him like he was a piece of meat she was thinking about buying. "A human wants to be a hunter," she said. Her voice was rough, like rocks grinding together. "How interesting. How amusing. How completely stupid. I can prove myself," Do-hyun said. "Can you?" Soreth tilted her head. "And how will you do that, little dirt crawler? Will you ask your prey nicely to die? Will you bore them to death with your weakness?" More laughter from the crowd. "I will take the trial," Do-hyun said. The laughter stopped again. This time, it did not come back. Soreth's eyes narrowed. "The descent? You want to take the descent?" She leaned closer, her face inches from his. Do you know what the descent is, human? Do you know what lives in those tunnels? Yes. And you still want to go? Yes. Soreth stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, showing teeth that were sharp and yellow. Very well. You will have your trial. And when you die screaming in the darkness, we will drink to your foolishness. The descent began the next morning. The abandoned mining tunnels ran deep beneath Kelder Station. Long ago, machines had dug through rock and metal, searching for precious minerals. Then something had gone wrong. The miners had released creatures from a forgotten war, bioweapons that had been sleeping in the darkness for centuries. The tunnels were sealed. The creatures were left to breed and grow and wait. Now the tunnels were used for one purpose only, to test those who wanted to become. Hunters. Duhayan stood at the entrance with 7 other candidates. 3 Velthari warriors, their scales painted for battle, their forearms carrying enough weapons to fight a small war. 2 Bryn with cybernetic enhancements, their bodies more machine than flesh. A Gorath mercenary, a mountain of muscle and armor, 3 meters tall and twice as wide as any human. And 1 other creature Dohyen did not recognize. Something with too many eyes and not enough legs. They all looked at him with contempt. The Gorath laughed and made a bet with one of the Velthari about how long the human would survive. The answer was less than 1 hour. Dohyen said nothing. He checked his knife. He coiled his cord around his arm. He waited. The doors opened. The candidates entered the darkness. For the first day, Dohyen simply followed. He stayed behind the others, watching how they moved, listening to the sounds of the tunnels. The other candidates were loud. They shouted to each other. They fired their weapons at shadows. They acted like the darkness should be afraid of them. Dohyen knew better. The darkness was never afraid. The darkness was patient. On the second day, the creatures came. Dohyen heard the screaming from far away. He did not run toward it. He found a small space between 2 rocks and made himself invisible. He controlled his breathing. He slowed his heartbeat. He became part of the darkness. The creatures passed him without stopping. They were hunting the loud ones, the brave ones, the ones who thought strength was enough. On the 3rd day, Dohyen began to move. The tunnels were a maze, but he had been watching. He had been learning. He knew where the creatures liked to hunt. He knew where they slept. He knew the paths they traveled and the places they avoided. He found the Gorath first, or what was left of him. The massive warrior had been torn apart, his weapons scattered around him, his blood painting the walls. Dohyen took a small light from the body. He left everything else. He found 2 of the Velthari next. They had fled the tunnels, disqualified from the trial. Better to lose honor than to lose life. He found the Bryn on the 3rd day. 1 was dead. The other was alive but broken, missing 2 of its limbs, its eyes wild with terror. It saw Dohyen and started screaming. Something is down there, the Bryn said. Something worse than the beasts. Something that watches. Something that waits. Dohyen helped the Bryn to the exit. He did not explain. He did not need to. On the 4th day, Dohyen walked out of the tunnels. He was not injured. His clothes were dirty, but there was no blood on them. His knife was clean. His cord was still coiled around his arm. Behind him, the tunnels were silent. Soreth was waiting at the exit. Her face showed nothing, but her eyes could not hide her surprise. How? She asked. How did you survive? Dohyen thought about the question. He thought about the darkness and the creatures and the long hours of waiting. He thought about his ancestors on Earth, millions of years ago, chasing prey across endless grasslands. They had no claws. They had no fangs. They had no strength, but they had something else. Something the galaxy had never seen before. On Earth, we have a way of hunting, Dohyen said. We call it persistence hunting. Our ancestors would chase an animal for hours, for days. They did not need to be faster. They did not need to be stronger. They just needed to never stop. They would follow and follow until the animal's heart gave out from exhaustion. He looked at Sorth. The creatures in those tunnels are predators. They hunt things that run, things that fight, things that tire. He paused. I did not run. I did not fight. I did not tire. I watched. I waited. I followed. And when they finally stopped to rest, I was still there. Sorth stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something no one in the guild had ever seen her do. She looked afraid. You are accepted into the Red Spiral Guild, she said. Her voice was quiet now, almost respectful. Provisional membership. You will prove yourself on real hunts. Dahan nodded and walked past her into the guild hall. The other hunters watched him pass. No one laughed this time. No one spoke at all, Dog. They had seen many killers come through those doors. Strong ones. Fast ones. Dangerous ones. But this one was different. This one was patient. And patience, they were beginning to understand, was the most terrifying weapon of all. 6 months passed like water through fingers. In that time, Park Do-hyun became something the galaxy had never seen before. He was not the strongest hunter in the Red Spiral Guild. He was not the fastest. He did not have the best weapons or the most advanced armor. But when the impossible contracts came in, when creatures had killed too many hunters, when entire teams had failed and died, the guildmasters always asked the same question: where is the human? Do-hyun took the jobs no one else wanted. Not for the money, not for the glory. He took them because they were hard, because they tested him, because each hunt taught him something new about himself and about the universe. His methods confused the other hunters. They watched him prepare for a hunt and shook their heads in disbelief. He did not bring heavy weapons. He did not bring teams of soldiers. He brought his knife, his cord, and a small bag of supplies that weighed almost nothing. He will die this time, they said before each hunt. No one can kill a thornback with just a knife. No one can capture a phase spider alone. No one can track a shadow worm through the acid swamps of Rel. And each time, Do-hyun returned, alone, successful, often without a single wound. The stories began to spread. Whispers at first, then louder talk. A human who hunted like nothing else in the galaxy. A creature from a young world who made the ancient predators look like children playing games. Not everyone was happy about this. Torvik had joined the Red Spiral Guild 3 months after Do-hyun. His father's money had bought him a position that his skills did not deserve. He was strong, yes. He was fast. But he was also proud and loud, and certain that his birth made him better than everyone else. He hated Do-hyun with a burning passion. He cheats, Torvik told anyone who would listen. The human uses Forbidden's technology. He uses tricks and lies. No dirt crawler could do what he claims to do. Some hunters believed him. Others were not so sure. But everyone agreed that Torvik's hatred was dangerous. Sooner or later, it would explode. It exploded on Ashkari Prime. Ashkari Prime was a death world. The galaxy had many such places, planets where life had evolved to be as deadly as possible. But Ashkari was special. It was home to the Devourer. The Ashkari Devourer was a legend among hunters. 8 meters tall, covered in armor that could stop plasma fire, faster than anything that size had a right to be, and smart. So smart that it had killed 43 hunters over the past century. Teams of 10, armed with the best weapons money could buy, had gone after it. None had returned. The bounty on the Devourer was enough to buy a small moon. Torvik wanted that bounty. More than that, he wanted to prove that he was better than Do-hyun. So he made a challenge loud and public. in the middle of the guild hall. "I will hunt the devourer," he announced, "and the human will come with me. We will see who the real hunter is." Do-hyun looked up from his meal. His face showed nothing. "Why would I do that?" he asked. "Because if you refuse, everyone will know you are a coward and a fraud." Torvik smiled his sharp smile. "Unless you are afraid, dirt crawler." The guild hall went silent. Every hunter watched, waiting to see what would happen. Do-hyun thought for a moment. Then he nodded. "I will come." The hunt began 3 days later. Torvik had assembled a team of 6 hunters. All Velthari, all loyal to him, all armed with enough weapons to fight a small army. They landed on Ashkari Prime in a heavy assault shuttle, their boots crushing the red grass of the plains. Do-hyun stepped off the shuttle last. He carried his knife and his cord. Nothing else. The other hunters laughed at him. Torvik's laughter was the loudest. "Look at the human," he said. "He plans to kill the devourer with a piece of string. Perhaps he will ask it nicely to die." Do-hyun did not respond. He was looking at the ground, reading the tracks, listening to the wind. "It is close," he said quietly. No one heard him. They were too busy laughing. They stopped laughing when the devourer attacked. It came from nowhere. One moment the plains were empty. The next, death was among them. The creature moved like a living shadow, its claws cutting through armor like paper. 2 hunters died before anyone could fire a shot. Torvik screamed orders. His hunters fired their weapons, plasma and projectiles, and energy beams, filling the air with light and noise. The devourer did not slow down. It moved through the fire like it was rain, taking wounds that would have killed any normal creature, but still coming, always coming. A claw caught Torvik across the chest. His armor saved his life, but just barely. He fell, blood pouring from the wound, his eyes wide with terror. The surviving hunters ran. They fled to the shuttle, their pride forgotten, thinking only of escape. Do-hyun did not run. He stood alone on the red grass, facing the devourer. The creature stopped. It looked at him with eyes that held an ancient intelligence. It had killed so many hunters. It knew what prey looked like. This human did not look like prey. Do-hyun began to move. Not away from the creature. Toward it, slowly, calmly, his knife in his hand, his eyes never leaving the devourer's face. The creature charged. What happened next? The surviving hunters could not explain. The human moved in ways that should have been impossible. He was never where the claws struck. He was always where the armor was weakest. His knife found gaps that should not have existed. His cord wrapped around limbs at perfect moments. The battle lasted 3 days, not 3 minutes. Not 3 hours. 3 days. The devourer was stronger. The devourer was faster. But Do-hyun did not need to be stronger or faster. He needed only to never stop. To never tire. To keep moving, keep cutting, keep bleeding the creature one small wound at a time. On the 3rd day, the devourer finally fell. Do-hyun cut off its head with his knife. It took him 4 hours. He did not rest until the job was done. When he dragged the head back to the base camp, Torvik was still there. His wounds had been treated, but he could not be moved. He stared at Do-hyun with eyes that held no more hatred. Only fear, only disbelief. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" Do-hyun dropped the head at Torvik's feet. He was tired, so tired. But his voice was steady when he spoke. "Your people see hunting as a battle, as a contest of strength. You attack. You win or you lose." He looked down at the massive head, at the creature that had killed 43 hunters. "My people learned something different. We learned that the hunt is not a moment. It is a process. We do not need to win every second. We only need to not lose. And if we do that long enough, we will win in the end." He turned and walked toward the shuttle dock behind him. The guild's communication officer came running with a message that had just arrived. Priority transmission from the Galactic Core. Someone very important was asking about the human hunter. Someone named R.E. to H.K.A.L. The Supreme Hunter. Do-hyun read the message twice. Then he looked up at the stars. Something was changing. He could feel it. The hunt was about to become something much bigger than he had ever imagined. And for the first time in months, Park Do-hyun smiled. The message changed everything. Kang. Yuna read it 5 times before she believed what she was seeing. She was Do-hyun's handler now, a young woman from Earth who had been assigned to keep track of him after his reputation began to grow. She had seen many strange things in the past months. But this was beyond strange. This was impossible. Rethko, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The Supreme Hunter of the Galactic Apex Order. He wants to meet you. Do-hyun was cleaning his knife. He did not look up. I know who he is. Do you? Yuna set the message down on the table between them. He is the most famous hunter in the galaxy. He has killed creatures on 1,000 worlds. He has never failed a single hunt in 600 years. 600 years, Do-hyun. He was hunting before humans learned to make fire. I know. And he wants to meet you. A human. A member of a species that has been traveling between stars for less than a century. Yuna shook her head. This does not happen. This has never happened. Do-hyun finally looked up. His eyes were calm, as always. But Yuna had learned to read the small changes in his face. Right now, she saw curiosity. And something else. Something that might have been excitement. Then I should not keep him waiting, Do-hyun said. The journey to Volthros took 2 weeks. Volthros was not a planet. It was a sacred place, a massive structure built in the space between 3 dead stars. The Galactic Apex Order had constructed it 10,000 years ago as a gathering place for the greatest hunters in the universe. No human had ever been invited there. Until now, when Do-hyun's ship landed in the Great Hall of Volthros, he found a crowd waiting for him. Hunters from dozens of species stood in a circle, their eyes fixed on the small human walking down the landing ramp. Champions who had killed world beasts. Warriors who had hunted gods. The elite of the elite. And all of them were looking at Do-hyun with contempt. This is a mistake, a massive Gorath hunter growled. Humans do not belong here. They are prey, not predators. Send him away, a Bryn champion agreed. His presence insults our traditions. Rethkal has lost his mind in his old age, someone else said. To invite a dirt crawler to the sacred grounds. The insults came from every direction. Do-hyun stood in the center of the circle and listened to them all. He did not speak. He did not react. He simply waited. And then the crowd fell silent. A door had opened at the far end of the hall. A figure walked through it, moving slowly, but with a power that made the air itself feel heavy. Every hunter in the room bowed their head in respect. Rethkal, the Supreme Hunter, had arrived. He was old. Older than anything Do-hyun had ever seen. His Valkyrie scales had faded to silver, and his forearms bore scars that told stories of battles fought before most species in the galaxy had evolved. But his eyes were sharp. Sharp and bright and filled with an intelligence that seemed to see everything at once. He walked directly to Do-hyun. The crowd parted before him like water before a stone. For a long moment, the Supreme Hunter said nothing. He simply looked at the human, studying him the way a master artist might study a new painting. Do-hyun looked back. He did not bow. He did not look away. He met those ancient eyes without fear. And then Rethkal smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible. But the hunters who saw it gasped in shock. Rethkal had not smiled in 200 years. Not since his greatest hunt. Not since the Void Stalker. The Supreme Hunter placed his primary hand on Do-Yun's shoulder. The touch was gentle, almost fatherly. And when he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the hall. "I name you brother of the hunt." The crowd erupted. "This cannot be allowed." The Gorath roared. "The ritual words have not been spoken to an outsider in 3 centuries. He is human," a Velthari champion shouted. "A child species. A nothing." But Reithkal raised his other hand, and silence fell like a hammer. "You question my judgment," he said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the hall like thunder. "You, who have never faced what I have faced. You, who have never seen what I have seen." He looked around the room, his silver eyes passing over each hunter in turn. "Let me tell you a story." He stepped back from Do-Yun, but kept his hand on the human's shoulder. 50 years ago, I hunted the Void Stalker, a creature of living darkness. It fed on fear. It lived in the spaces between thoughts. It was the greatest hunt of my life." He paused. "I nearly died. I should have died. But in those moments, when the creature had me in its grasp, I saw something in its memory." The hall was completely silent now. Every hunter leaned forward, desperate to hear. The Void Stalker had traveled the galaxy for millions of years. It had seen countless species rise and fall. It feared nothing. Reithkal's voice dropped lower. But in its memories, I saw one species that gave it pause. One species that had watched with something close to concern. He looked down at Do-Yun. Humans. On a small blue world, barely past their Stone Age. They had no claws. No fangs. No natural weapons. They were weak and slow and soft. His grip on Do-Yun's shoulder tightened. But they hunted. They chased their prey across endless grasslands, not for hours, but for days. They did not stop. They did not tire. They followed and followed until their prey's heart simply gave out. He turned back to the crowd. "I have watched this human for months. I have studied his hunts. He carries that ancient fire. He does what our strongest hunters cannot do, not through strength, but through patience, through endurance, through a will that does not break." He raised his voice. "He's what a hunter should be, and I name him brother." No one argued. No one dared. The ceremony continued. Do-Yun was given a mark, a symbol burned into his arm that showed his new status. He was now a member of the Galactic Apex Order, the first human to hold noble status among the hunters. But it was after the ceremony. When the crowds had left, that Reithkal spoke to him alone. The old hunter led Do-Yun to a quiet room overlooking the dead stars. They stood together in the darkness, 2 hunters from different worlds, different times, different species. "You are wondering why," Reithkal said. "Why I chose you. Why now?" Do-Yun nodded. Reithkal was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was heavy with sorrow. "There is a hunt coming, brother. A hunt that will determine the fate of your world. Powerful forces have declared Earth a game preserve. They plan to release a weapon designed to hunt humans to extinction." Do-Yun felt his blood turn cold. "And I need you to help me fail it." Do-Yun turned to face the Supreme Hunter. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned with a fire that Reithkal had seen only once before. In those ancient memories of the Void Stalker. "Tell me everything." And Reithkal did. The hunt for Earth was about to begin. But the prey, it seemed, had other plans. The truth was worse than Do-Yun had imagined. A secret group of Velthari nobles had grown tired of watching humanity rise. They hated that a young species could produce hunters who matched their best. They hated that the Supreme Hunter himself had named a human as his brother. Most of all, they hated that they could do nothing to stop it. So they had decided to end the problem at its source. They called it a game preserve. They had bribed the Galactic Council to look away. They had built a weapon, a bioengineered nightmare designed to hunt humans with perfect efficiency. In 3 days, they would release it on Earth. They would follow in their ships, hunting the survivors like animals. And when it was done, humanity would be extinct. The leader of this group was a Velthari High Lord named Curvith. He was Torvik's father, and he had been planning this hunt for 50 years. "We cannot stop them through politics," Rithgal said. "The Council will not act. The law does not protect the young species. If Earth is to survive, it must defend itself." Dahan listened. Then he asked the only question that mattered. "Will you help us?" Rithgal was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I will, and I am not alone. There are others who believe the hunt should have honor. We are few, but we are skilled." He looked at Do-Yoon with those ancient silver eyes. "But we cannot win this war for you, brother. We can only give you a chance. What your people do with that chance is up to them." Do-Yoon nodded. He had known this would be the answer. He had expected nothing else. "Then let us give them a chance worth taking." They arrived on Earth 2 days before the attack. Do-Yoon, Rithgal, Kang Yuna, and a small group of hunters who had chosen honor over politics. 12 warriors against an army dot. It should have been hopeless. But Do-Yoon had a plan. He gathered the human leaders in a secure room beneath the mountains of Korea. Presidents and generals and scientists, all of them looking at him with fear in their eyes. They had been told what was coming. They did not know how to stop it. "You are thinking like prey," Do-Yoon told them. "You are thinking about defense, about hiding, about survival." He shook his head. "That is what they expect. That is what their weapon is designed to hunt. Creatures that run, creatures that hide, creatures that want to survive." He leaned forward, his eyes burning with the fire that had carried him through 100 hunts. "We will not run. We will not hide. We will hunt them back." The generals did not understand, but they listened. And by the time Do-Yoon finished explaining, they understood enough. The bioweapon landed in the Korean wilderness at dawn on the 3rd day. It was a nightmare made flesh, a creature designed in laboratories to be the perfect human predator. It could smell fear. It could hear heartbeats. It could track a single human across continents. Behind it came the noble hunters and their advanced ships. 50 Velthari warriors, led by High Lord Curvith himself. They expected to find a world in panic. They expected to find humans fleeing in terror, easy prey for their sport. They found silence instead. The cities were empty. The villages were abandoned. The roads were clear. Not a single human could be seen anywhere. Curvith ordered his hunters to spread out. Find the prey. Begin the hunt. They spread out. And they began to disappear. The first hunter vanished on the 2nd night. His signal simply stopped. His body was found at dawn, unmarked except for a single knife wound to the heart. No signs of struggle. No signs of a fight. Just silence. And death. 2 more hunters disappeared the next night. Then 4, then 7. Curvith demanded answers. His warriors searched the forests and the mountains and the caves. They used every sensor, every scanner, every piece of technology their advanced civilization could offer. They found nothing. Just more silence. More empty armor. More hunters who would never return home. Do-Yoon led the counterattack personally. He had gathered the best soldiers Earth could offer and taught them the old ways. Not how to fight, but how to hunt. How to move without sound. How to wait without moving. How to be patient. So patient that the universe itself seemed to tire before they did. The Velthari were predators. They understood attack and defense. They understood battle and war. But they did not understand this. They did not understand being prey. Do-Yoon understood it perfectly. For 7 days, he and his teams turned the hunt against the hunters. They did not fight fair. They did not fight at all. They simply waited and watched and struck when their enemies were weak. One knife in the darkness. One silent death. Then gone like ghosts, like shadows, like nothing at all. The bioweapon was the hardest target. It was designed to be the ultimate predator, impossible to kill, impossible to escape. But it was designed to hunt prey that ran. Do-yun did not run. He chased the creature instead. Day and night, never stopping, never resting, always following. The bioweapon did not understand. Its programming had no answer for a prey that became a predator. It tried to flee. It tried to hide. Do-yun found it anyway. He always found his prey. On the sixth night, he killed it, alone, with his knife and his cord and 6 days of patience. On the seventh day, he found Curvith. The High Lord had retreated to his command ship, surrounded by his last surviving guards. He was terrified. Nothing in his long life had prepared him for this. He was supposed to be the hunter. He was supposed to be the predator. Instead, he was prey. And he knew it. Do-yun walked into the command ship alone. The guards tried to stop him. They were found the next morning, still at their posts, their hearts stopped by wounds so precise they had not even had time to scream. Curvith faced Do-yun in his private chambers. The Velthari Lord drew his weapons, all 4 arms bristling with blades and guns. He was still a warrior. He would not die without a fight. "You cannot win," Curvith said. "Kill me, and others will come. My people will never stop hunting yours." Do-yun looked at him calmly. "Your people see us as prey," he said. "They see our soft skin and our weak bodies, and they think we are easy targets." He stepped closer, and Curvith stepped back. "They do not understand what we are. We are the species that chased mammoths across ice fields. We are the species that tamed wolves and horses and fire itself. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions." He raised his knife. "We are not prey, High Lord. We never were. We are hunters. And we are very, very patient." Curvith attacked. He was stronger, faster, better armed. Do-yun killed him anyway, because Curvith expected a fight. Do-yun gave him a hunt. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. The great hunt had failed. Earth had survived. A young species had defeated the combined might of the Velthari nobility. The scandal destroyed the consortium. Curvith's allies were executed for violating sacred hunting laws. Earth was granted protected status, not as a nursery world, but as the homeworld of the galaxy's newest apex species. Reithkal officially adopted Do-yun into his clan. The first human to hold such an honor. The first of many, they all hoped. On the day after the victory, Do-yun stood on a cliff overlooking Seoul. The sun was rising, painting the sky in colors of gold and red. Yuna joined him, standing at his side in comfortable silence. "They will never underestimate us again," she said. Do-yun shook his head. "No, they will fear us now. And fear is just another kind of hunt." He turned to look at her, and for the first time she could remember, he smiled. "We will have to teach them something better." "What is that?" "That we would rather be brothers than predators." He looked up at the stars, at the vast galaxy waiting beyond the sky. "But if they make us choose..." He paused. The sun rose higher, warming his face, filling the world with light. "We know how to hunt." Far above, in the darkness between stars, Reithkal watched the sunrise through the cameras of his ship. He saw his human brother standing on that cliff, and he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Hope. Humanity was ready. The galaxy was not. And the hunt, the real hunt, was just beginning.